Good afternoon. We would like to call this meeting to order. This is a regularly scheduled City Council meeting for the City of Kingman, held at 5 p.m. on Tuesday, April 2nd, 2024. We'd like to turn some time over to our City Clerk for a roll call.
Mayor Watkins.
Present.
Vice Mayor Samily.
Here.
Councilmember Eric.
Present.
Councilmember Savage.
Here.
Councilmember Scott Staley.
Present.
Councilmember Walker is excused this evening. Councilmember Ward.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. We would like to invite those who would like to participate in our invocation to stand. Our invocation today will be given by Pastor Joe Tolan with Kingman Presbyterian Church, after which I've asked our Vice Mayor to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's bow in prayer. Sovereign Lord, the one who has given us a nation that is free, a nation where we can also appoint our own leaders, elect our own leaders. We thank you, Lord, for the opportunity to do that. We thank you that you've given us the freedom of religion. We thank you that you've given us the freedom to worship according to our conscience, and that you have told us in the Bible that we are to pray for those who are in authority over us. And we do that tonight, Lord. We thank you that you have given those in authority over us, and that we ask you now that you would give them wisdom as they govern this great city, this beautiful place that you've given us to live. I pray that you would bless them. I pray that you would bless us, the citizens of Kingman, through their work tonight and in the future as well. And we ask this in the name of our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The council may go into executive session for legal counsel in accordance with ARS 38-431.03A3 to discuss any agenda item. The following items may be discussed, considered, and decisions made relating thereto. First on our agenda, item number 1, call to the public, comments from the public. Those wishing to address the council should fill out request forms in advance. Comments from the public will be restricted to items not on the agenda, with the exception of those on the consent agenda. There will be no comments allowed that advertise for a particular person or group. Comments should be limited to no longer than 3 minutes. The council may not respond to speakers during the call to the public. The council may direct the city manager to study the matter, or request that the matter be placed on a future agenda. Tonight we have one citizen that would like to share some thoughts. Mr. Ronald Barr, would you like to come forward? Ronald, did I say your last name right?
Yeah, well, close enough.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Ron Baer from Kingman, Arizona. I live over on North Apache Street. I'm here to discuss the problem we have, especially as we get further here now into spring with cattle running loose in the city's limits. We have the ability to prevent this. We have several of them throughout the county. It's called a no fence zone. The state of Arizona has put this into state statutes that municipalities can request through the county to create these zones where the owners of the cattle, ranchers, would be responsible to keep their cattle contained. Any damage done by the cattle would be on the hook of the ranchers themselves to pay residents or for any damage done to their property. Here in Mojave, we have 3 zones right now that are over in Mojave Valley area that have existed for years. And with the growth of Kingman the way it is, it's probably about time we start to look at, as we're moving further and further outward into cattle territory here, that we start to actually be serious about this instead of calling our police department to chase cattle and become cowboys in their trucks. It's just a little bit ridiculous. I myself have had 3 occurrences already, and I don't really want my 6-year-old to be trampled by a cow. It's one thing to be hit by a car. It's another thing to be trampled over by an animal, and those kinds of things where you just cannot control it. You know, we did this for cars, we slowed them down and stuff. It's time we do something with the cattle in town and within city limits. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ronald. Item number 2, consent agenda. All matters listed here are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. Council, have you had a chance to take a look, I'm hoping, at your packet? Are there any things that need to be pulled? Okay. Hearing none, I would like to have a motion then. Can we have a motion approving our item number 2 consent agenda?
So moved.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Item number 3, old business. Approve correction to residential irrigation usage inside city limits. Water rate listed in water rate study update and a readopt a notice of intent to modify water rates and set a public hearing date. A notice of intent to increase water rates was brought before council for consideration and approval at the March 19th, 2024 council meeting. Council adopted the notice of intent to move forward with the rates outlined in option number 2 of the water rate study update memorandum. As staff was reviewing the data contained within the report, a typographical error was found in the usage rates for residential irrigation usage inside city limits. All of the other rates were reviewed and found to be typed correctly. Staff is bringing this correction before council for consideration of adopting a notice of intent to increase water rates using option number 2. Staff recommends approval. Our deputy manager, Tina Moline.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. Unfortunately, at the last council meeting, when you did adopt the notice of intent to increase water rates, while the proposals that were brought before you were accurate, one of the rate structures in the report that we were going to publish on the website for the public to view was not correct. So we needed to get that updated so that the public can view the correct information. It changes absolutely nothing with the discussion that was had at the last council meeting. All of the proposals that were brought before you at that time are still valid proposals. It does not change any of that. It was solely due to a typographical error in one of the rates. So we're asking you to readopt the notice of intent using the option that you adopted at the last council meeting, and then we'll move forward with getting the report updated and posted on the website.
Council, any questions for Tina? Okay, thanks, Tina. Can we have a motion then approving item number 3A?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay, motion and a second. And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 4, new business. 4A, consideration of developer participation for Kingman Crossing Boulevard. Section 1 through 4 of the City of Kingman Street Regulations discusses the programming, construction, and reconstruction of city streets. For all street classifications other than arterial streets, for example, collector streets, the regulations state that the construction of those streets in a new subdivision shall be the responsibility of the developer. For arterial streets, the regulations indicate that the funding may be derived from local government and local improvement districts. City revenues, highway user funds, lottery funds, state and/or federal grants, and/or bond issues. However, it goes on to say that exceptions to this rule may be required for certain subdividing and land development programs, whereby Common Council may determine that a development cannot be approved unless the developer improves or participates in the improvement of the arterial. The purpose of this communication to Council is to provide the relevant information and alternatives for consideration and possible action by City Council regarding whether the participation of Engel Homes, the developer, in the extension of Kingman Crossing Boulevard should be a condition for approval. Staff recommends requiring developer participation as outlined in scenario number 4. Once again, Tina, we'll turn some time over to you.
Great. I'm actually going to ask our interim city engineer, Mike Garman, to come up this evening and present on this item.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I have a brief presentation on this topic that I want to present to you. just go to the next slide. Okay, Kingman Crossing Tract 1993 is a subdivision currently being planned by Angle Homes. The proposed subdivision lies between Santa Rosa Drive and Airway Avenue, where the Kingman Transportation Master Plan, recently adopted by council, recommends the extension of Kingman Crossing Boulevard as an arterial street. Next slide, please. Some project, go back one. Oh, there we go. Project history here. The original preliminary plat for Kingman Crossing Tract 1993 was approved by resolution number 4009 in August of 2004. This version of the preliminary plat showed Kingman Crossing Boulevard as a collector street having a 70-foot right-of-way. Next slide. The 2005 version of Kingman Area Transportation Study showed 2 proposed arterial connections on the east side of the city, including Kingman Crossing Boulevard. Next slide. In August of 2007, council approved an extension of time for Kingman Crossing preliminary plat that included the condition that the plat be redesigned to accommodate Kingman Crossing Boulevard as a 45-mile-per-hour arterial street with 130 feet of right-of-way. The resolution mentions that the condition was added based on federal highway requirements for the future Kingman Crossing traffic interchange that would require an arterial connection between the interchange and city street network. 2008 change of access report for Kingman Crossing traffic interchange. The design concept report for the interchange shows Kingman Crossing Boulevard as a 4-lane arterial street between Santa Rosa and Airway. Next slide. Multiple time extensions were filed between 2010 and 2020. A redesigned preliminary plat was submitted with a wider and realigned Kingman Crossing Boulevard in 2018. Then the property changed hands as Angle Homes became the beneficiary of trust in January of 2020. Next slide. In September of 2020, council approved another extension of time for a new redesigned preliminary plat with multiple conditions, including the removal of statements on the plat related to whose responsibility is to design and construct Kingman Crossing Boulevard. Next slide. In December of 2023, council adopted Kingman Transportation Master Plan, which shows Kingman Crossing Boulevard as a 4-lane arterial street between Santa Rosa and Airway. Next slide. A revised preliminary plat was submitted in February of this year. The street cross-section on the preliminary plat also shows a proposed drainage channel that is necessary to convey off-site drainage through the property. The notes on the revised plat indicate the developer will build half of the arterial street, with the remaining improvements being completed by others. The street right-of-way width that's shown on the plans is 86 feet, which is 14 feet less wide than our standard arterial cross-section. Next slide. If the city accepts the 86-foot wide dedication of right-of-way for Kingman Crossing Boulevard, the design of our standard arterial cross-section will need to be modified in order to fit 4 travel lanes within the available width. Also, Kingman Crossing Boulevard will need a left turn lane and a right turn lane at the intersection with Airway. This would necessitate further modifications to the cross-section. Next slide. The engineering department put together some preliminary cost estimates for Kingman Crossing Boulevard based on recent bid information for the Eastern Street project and using right-of-way cost information from the developer. This slide shows the total cost for each type of street being considered. Next slide. This slide shows some cost-sharing scenarios that we considered for recommendation. Scenarios 1 and 3 are scenarios where the developer pays for the whole arterial street with no participation from the city. Scenarios 2 and 4 are scenarios where the city basically pays for upsizing from the standard collector street to an arterial street. Scenario 5 reflects the statements on the most recent version of the preliminary plat that the developer builds half the arterial street and someone else, the city, builds the rest. Note that in this scenario, the developer's cost is less than if he built a collector street, which he would be required to pay for entirely. Next slide. So after consideration, staff recommends scenario 4, which is basically accepting the 86-foot wide arterial section that's depicted on the preliminary plat, and then the city would reimburse the developer an amount equal to the difference between the cost of the arterial street and the standard collector street. That amounts to about $300,000. And that's it. Any questions?
Thanks, Mike. Turn my mic on. So you mentioned 4 lanes of traffic. That's 4 lanes with a center turn lane, so obviously 5 lanes.
Right.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that. And then I noticed previous developer on this was Mr. Nugent.
Correct.
Had he agreed to anything different than what we're changing now? Or had that, was that, in other words, when he put that original plat together and the agreement for this road? Or was that ever talked about, or was that included in those development plans?
I don't think that officially there had ever been any conversations about who should pay for what.
Okay,
I know that the previous city engineer had some correspondence with the current developer regarding that situation, but I'm not sure if there'd ever been any discussions with Mr. Nugent about it.
okay. Okay. Yeah, that's it. Thanks for me. Council, any questions for Mike?
I do.
Yes, Sean, go ahead.
My question is, being that the growth that we expect to see out of the traffic interchanges coming up, is it wise to decrease the size or plan for the future and keep the actual 100 feet?
That's a good question, Councilman Savage. The one thing to realize is that if we required the 100-foot arterial section, that the developer would have to go back and redesign their subdivision to accommodate that, as well as the drainage channel that's going to be adjacent to the road. So for that reason, we went ahead with the 86-foot section.
Okay, if we kept it at the 100 feet and the redesigned drainage plat, if the city was to compensate the developers for that portion, I'd like to know what that would be. So my concern is we're going to be taking stuff off of Stockton Hill by having these interchanges. But the growth is not going to stop. I'd rather be prepared for the future than to have to readjust it down the road, if that makes sense. Is that something we could look at?
That makes complete sense to me. I don't have that cost information today, but that's something we could definitely look into.
Okay, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, Mike, roughly, wouldn't that cost be like on your graph that you showed the total cost at the 100? Wouldn't it just be the difference, which is 1.4 million?
Well, the one cost that's not included in those numbers is anything having to do with the redesign of the channel.
Okay.
Without really taking a detailed look at it, I think that there was probably some pretty considerable constraints with regard to the drainage channel, what they would have to do that could end up costing a lot of money. So that would be something that their design engineer would have to look at and let us know what we would be looking at as far as cost goes.
Okay. And then, so that as laymen, we have a better understanding of it, we're not going to go out there and measure it with a tape. But for example, where Santa Rosa hits Airway, how wide is Santa Rosa right there? Because a lot of people have driven over there, and that would give us an idea of what we're talking about.
How wide is Santa Rosa?
Right there where it hits Airway.
I believe Santa Rosa is a standard arterial section, so it's 100 feet.
So it is going to be 100 feet. Okay. Okay. Just help us compare some more. Okay. Council, Vice Mayor?
My question is timeline. Do we know from the developer, if we're going to reimburse, do we know about when that timing is going to happen for reimbursement? Is that a question for the developer?
Yeah, we have not had those conversations yet with the developer.
Okay. I'm curious, when we get to that point, Mayor, I'd like to know what their timeline is. as far as when the expectation of it being completed, when the expectation is for reimbursement, just trying to put all the pieces of the development puzzle together
Yeah, you bring up
for
valid points.
funding. So
Yes.
when we get there, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Counselor Staley.
So I just want to make sure I'm understanding this. The 86-foot wide street is still 4 lanes, turn lane. The modifications needed at the intersection are what?
Well, that's something that the design engineer would have to figure out. I'm assuming that they would, in order to fit it in the standard, in the 86-foot wide section, just in the main part of the street, we're going to have to reduce the travel lane widths. And I think that there's some landscaping area back behind the sidewalk that we would probably reduce that.
Okay.
When they get to the intersection, the right-hand turn lane, I'm not exactly sure what they're going to need to do there, but they may have to look at maybe taking in the bike lane or something. I'm not really sure, but that's something that their design engineer would have to figure out.
And do you have any concerns about that affecting the safety of that intersection?
I don't think so. Actually, a lot of cities employ what's called traffic calming devices where they basically narrow the lanes when you get to the intersection anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm not really concerned about the intersection, the
Okay.
narrow lanes there.
That was kind of my biggest concern, is that if we tweak this intersection, would it make it unsafe? Would we expect more accidents? But I agree. I've read about where we reduce the lane size, and it does help calm traffic. And I see, it looks like one lane is maybe 11 feet and the other one's 12. Is the minimum 9 feet for a lane?
I don't think 9 feet. I think it might be 10.
Okay. So it's a little bit over the minimum.
Right.
Both are. So still big enough, still able to carry quite a bit of traffic. Okay. I just wanted to make sure I understood clearly what we were looking at in this 86-foot option. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, thank you, Counselor. Counselor, yes, Counselor Eric.
Hey, Mike. Do you have anywhere in town that's, or what's your busiest 86-foot right-of-way in Kingman that's being used right now?
That's really a good question. I actually spoke with some guys at Public Works about narrowing the traffic lanes, and I think there's some sections of Stockton Hill that have 11-foot lanes.
Do you know which parts?
Jack would know.
Okay.
Any divine wall.
Perfect. That gives us an idea, a visual idea. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay. Mike, thank you. I appreciate it. Council, any other discussion on this item?
I would like to bring the developer up.
Yes, we're going to do that.
Okay,
So
all
that'll
right.
be next.
I just didn't
So-
want you to forget.
Yeah, is Mr. Engel here? Tyler Engel?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Tyler Engel, the owner of High Desert Land, which is our development company. Most people know us by Engel Homes, which is more of the home building and forward-facing public company. But I'd like to cover again some of the things that Mike shared. To hit on the size of the 86, one thing that this is a really long-standing issue. We've worked with, this is now the third city engineer, where we realized at some point there's a lot of water coming from the hospital coming north, and so we have to channelize all that offsite water. It's essentially all their water and from the interstate, none of it's ours, to get it from the hospital to Airway, and then so it can go further north. So there's a bunch of water in a really big storm that needs to go there. So we came up with this plan of a modified arterial section. It was 84 feet, then it went to 86 feet. Then over the last couple of years, we needed to update the preliminary plat. At the same time, the commercial interchange was doing their planning and traffic studies. Also at the same time as that, the city was doing their master traffic plan. So all three of these entities myself, the city, and the commercial developer hired different traffic consultants, traffic engineers to study the area. Both our consultants and the city's consultants initially said only a collector would be needed here between Santa Rosa and Airway because the traffic was only around 12 or 13,000 trips a day, and a collector can convey that. The definition of a collector in the city's rules is to connect two arterials. That's like the first sentence of what a collector is, and so it would make sense. It's within the tolerances of a collector. The city staff at the time, looking at it, used professional judgment, and they said, long-term, we think an arterial would be better. We kind of argued for a collector at the time because we thought we were going to be footing the bill for this thing, didn't want it to be overbuilt. But the city really wanted a collector, so they made all three of those parties agree on the numbers, how much traffic's going to be flowing there, projected out to 2045, and what street section was going to be there. So it's not an arterial per se because the traffic is super high. It's more to create better connectivity long term. So that's how it got to the 5 lanes, not because it's going to be maxed out because of traffic, but just for the overall flow to be better. That's what the city wanted. So now we're on to arterial. Street there is what's in the plan. We're fine with dedicating that amount of space. But since it is arterial, I wanted to review again in the city regulations, and this may be the only time in my life I get to take this stance, so it's kind of nice. But it does say major and minor arterials that the city basically, as a rule, is responsible for paying for those. So I'm not asking for an exception. The city's actually asking for an exception if you look at the rule. So it says funding for such projects may be derived from local improvement districts, city revenues, highway user funds, lottery funds, state and federal grants, and or bond issues. So that's arterial streets. Then the next paragraph says exceptions to this rule. So the rule is city pays for it. The exception is the city then may ask the developer to participate or help improve it, which we're very willing to do. We're going to be subdividing there. We don't need an arterial for ours. Our traffic is only 1/10 of what the long-term projected traffic is going to be. And again, all three of the different consultants agreed on these numbers that the subdivision is only going to create 10% of the traffic that will be using this arterial road. About 40% of it is background traffic. Just by it being there, people through the city will be using it. And then about 40% is going to be the interchange, people wanting to visit the commercial that would eventually be there, the shops and things, and the hospital, I guess. So we're just a small fraction of that there as far as driving it. It's really the driver is the interchange. If the interchange were to never go in, then everyone agrees that it wouldn't be needed. You wouldn't need an arterial there. That's what's really gonna drive it. Another concern is the interchange is not guaranteed to happen. As we looked in 2007, 17 years ago is when they did a study saying these should be the rough roads because of the interchange. Hopefully it does happen. We hope it does, but it could not happen. So it seems like it would be a big overbuild to go and build the whole 100% shebang tomorrow when, what if the interchange never does go in? We way overpaid, and then we have to overpay for maintenance potentially for a long time until the interchange hopefully eventually someday does go in. So looking at those cost sharing scenarios, I understand what the city's doing there with the different numbers. I think the numbers are all pretty close to what the costs are, so we're not disagreeing with any of their matrix there. If you do look at number 4, which the staff's proposing to be accepted, we would be shouldering 76% of the cost burden, the city sharing 24%. In talking with the city, I was trying to convince them that, hey, the big player here is the commercial developer, because if they don't do the interchange, then none of this is needed. They're really the ones driving the traffic for it, but because of the development agreement, they can't be roped in and be asked to pay for part of this because it wasn't in their development agreement to share in this road section. Number 5, though, has us paying for 64% basically of this revised cross-section with the $793,000. And that would be the one that I'd be more comfortable doing, and would ask that you approve number 5, where we shoulder 64% of the cost, even though we're only generating 10% of the use of the road. That's all I had to say about it. Any questions? I'd love to answer.
Thanks, Tyler. Any questions for Mr. Engel?
I
Vice
do.
Mayor?
Number 5 is where I was leaning, so I was glad you made that recommendation. However, are you arguing the fact that this should be a collector
No,
versus an arterial?
I'm not.
You're not? Okay. All right. Mayor,
Yes.
I'd like to go into executive session.
Okay. Carl, guidelines on that?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. If everybody would like to hang or stay put for a little bit, we will go into executive session. Oh, wait, do we need a motion for that, Carl?
Yes, please.
We need a motion, don't we? Can we have a motion to go into executive session?
I'd like to make a motion. We go into executive session.
Can we have a second?
I'll second that.
Can we have, all those in favor say aye?
Aye.
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 Okay, we'll be right back. Well, hopefully. executive session. We'd like to thank everybody here in Chambers for sticking around. And we'd like to ask Mr. Engel to come back up, please. We have some more questions for him. And Vice Mayor, we're going to let you lead off.
Thank
Okay,
you,
I'm
Tyler.
ready.
Thank you, Tyler. I was just curious, what's your timeline for development in this area?
So we're currently developing what's called Phase D. They have poured the sidewalks and put in most of the utilities. They're going to be paving that soon. We'll be planning to break ground on Phase E or Phase 5 within the coming months as well. The city's gone through and approved those plans, or they're in the final stages, I believe, in Phase E. So we're actively, we're almost fully built out in Phase C. So we're going D, E, and then there's a bunch more phases to final build out. So we're just going to keep going phase after phase is the plan.
Okay. So, again.
Is that what you're asking?
What's my time, what's the timeline? Because, I mean, I'm just trying to figure out if we're going to be reimbursed, what does
for
that?
the road
Yes,
specifically?
so what, for the
Gotcha.
road specifically?
So I'm in no rush to build the road. Again, what if the interchange never goes in? The city, frankly, what I was proposing on my plat was that the city defer anything that I didn't build until some point that the interchange does go in, and then the city can come in with their share and finish the other side of the road or whatever. Because if we do it now, it's kind of wasting it. In the meantime, maintaining a road that's not going to be used essentially at all. But I'd probably defer my piece till the end of the subdivision. Otherwise, I got to spend $700, $800, $900, $1 million, $1.5 million, depending on the scenarios, for
Sure.
no benefit in the short term. The home buyers aren't going to want some gigantic road that dead ends, at the dirt near where the future interchange would be. It's not a benefit to them. It wouldn't be a benefit to me. But in the end, if the interchange is in and everything, and then that's the last phase, everything's connected, then that all works.
So how many lettered phases do you have? What's your end phase?
I think there's 12 or 13 total phases.
Okay, so you're still a significant ways away from being complete, where then the road, you want to defer it as far in the future as possible.
Yeah.
Okay,
Along that area, it would kind of be a hybrid situation. We would need to improve the drainage earlier on to make that all work,
Sure.
and make sure no one has ill effects downstream. But the actual road improvements, we probably want to defer till later in the project. We're not wanting to, there's no benefit to anybody to do it tomorrow, for instance.
okay. So I have a question for Ms. Moline. So once he's completely finished and we sign off on it and accept it into our network, that's when the reimbursement occurs?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have. Thanks.
Okay. Counselors, any other questions? Tyler, along those lines what Vice Mayor was mentioning, just projected, I know you have up to 12 phases or maybe a couple more than that. What's your total, how many homes altogether are you looking at in that development? And all the whole master plan here?
So I think of unbuilt homes, do you know? Or unbuilt future lots?
I mean, when you bought it from Mr. Nugent or maybe the agreement, I'm
Yeah.
sure you came up with
So
an
one time there was
idea.
around 1,000, but
Okay.
we built 100 or 150 homes since then. So I think it's around 900 left. to-
Altogether
to
in the
be
whole
built.
project.
Yeah.
Okay, that's sizable. Okay. Okay, council. Thank you, Mr. Engel. Appreciate it. Any discussion on this before we make a motion? Jingus?
Okay.
I would
Oh,
like,
Mr. Savage, go ahead. We'll start with him.
sorry, Changes. Going back to what I said, I think we should table this for another meeting or two, just to get a headwind of where we're gonna go with the economic development team. That's my personal opinion, and it won't hurt because it's not happening and breaking ground today. I think we should be rational and make this decision wisely. That's my opinion.
Thank you, Sean. Any discussion on Sean's proposal? Yes, Vice Mayor.
I appreciate that comment. However, I don't know, is Bennett here? Is Bennett, no?
He was earlier.
We just did a master transportation study, and I would not like to hold up the developer from the approval of their preliminary plat. So I'm not in favor of tabling this, because I don't think that there's going to be any information that we're going to be able to glean off of the studies that will be any different than the 2040 future numbers for the master transportation plan that we had, the forecast. So that's just my thoughts.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Chingus.
So my only thing with number 5 really is that it mentions a half 86-foot road. Does that mean that it's only being built half and then half at a later time when the other side is developed? So that's my only thing that I would like to kind of point out is we talked about half plus 8 previously, and here it is again. So this is a good chance to put, comments into action.
Thank you for those comments. Vice Mayor, you turned your mic back on.
Oh, you make a good point. I'm against the half street or the half plus 8, so.
Councillor Saley.
Yeah, I just to make a remark on what Councilman Savage said, I understand where you're coming from. I felt the same way initially. I thought, oh, I don't want to downsize this now, and then 20 years from now, we're having to buy right of way and rebuild it, similar to kind of what we've talked about for Stockton Hill. However, after I looked at this and then heard from Jack that this is the same as the intersection of Stockton Hill and Andy Devine, I do feel like that is a significant sized intersection, and it handles a lot of traffic day in and day out. I think that no matter how much this grows over the next 50 years, that an intersection the size of Andy Devine will be sufficient. So I feel comfortable moving forward today, and personally, I think number 4 is fair. That is the same price that the developer would have paid for a collector street, and then we would be picking up the difference in order to fully develop the 86-foot wide street.
Thank you, Councillor.
Mm-hmm.
Councillor Ward, did you want to weigh in on this?
I agree.
Or you're good?
I agree with Jamie. I've read through this 2 or 3 times, but the best I can figure is we don't want a half street anywhere. And number 4 to me is the best scenario.
Okay, thank you. I did talk to Councillor Walker prior to this meeting, and of course, I know it's unofficial what his thoughts are, but he and I both looking at it and both like number 4. And it makes sense because of the fact that we as a council in the past have said we are tired of half streets. We want to get away from that. And so I would make the motion then that we adopt our scenario number 4 under 4A, new business consideration of developer participation for Kingman Crossing Boulevard.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, councilors. Item 4B, public hearing and consideration of resolution number 5495, Keno subdivision preliminary plat. A request for the approval of a preliminary subdivision plat for Keno subdivision consisting of 96 residential lots and 3 parcels dedicated to stormwater control located on 20.12 acres. The City of Kingman Planning and Zoning Commission held a public hearing on March 13th, 2024, and passed by a 4-0 vote motion recommending approval of the requested preliminary plat subject to conditions. Staff recommends approval. Vice Mayor? Oh, I'm sorry. We'll let you turn it over. I know you're going to recognize who's
Yes.
speaking tonight.
We have Rosa with us this evening that'll present on the public hearing. Thank you.
Welcome, Rosa.
Hi, Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of the council. Before you, you have a preliminary plat request approval for subdivision 23-0004. to be known as Keno Subdivision Tract 1983-C. The owner is Joel Juice on behalf of Canyon State Enterprises along with Big Red Construction. The applicant is Jedediah Noble, the project engineer on behalf of Civil Works Engineering LLC. The applicant requests a preliminary plat approval for the subdivision to be known as Keno Subdivision Tract 1983-C, consisting of 96 residential lots and 3 parcels dedicated to stormwater control on approximately 20.12 acres. As you can see, the subject area is delineated in black there. It is currently zone R16 residential single family with 6,000 square foot minimum lot size. Here are some site photos. The first one is from Rainbow Drive looking southwest. The second one is from Evans looking south, and the last one is from Evans Street looking southeast. There's currently an 8-inch water line shown there in red, and the 6-inch sewer can be shown there as well. Findings of fact. The area of the land in question is 20.12 acres, zone R16, and includes assessor's parcel numbers 320-02, 189-190, and 202. The physical characteristics of the site is relatively flat with slopes of 1 to 2% falling gradually to the northwest, and it is located outside the 2% annual chance floodplain. As I mentioned earlier, there is an existing 8-inch polyvinyl chloride and a 3-inch steel water line along Keno from Evans Street, and a 6-inch water line on Rainbow Street along a 16-inch water line on the west side of Bank Street. There is a 15-inch sewer line on Keno and Rainbow Street as well. Transportation. The site is accessed from Keno Avenue and then south via Melody Street, then east and west on Daphne Avenue, then south to Evans Street and Brook Street, respectively. Keno is a paved road with a 2-lane 45-foot right-of-way. Melody Street, Evans Street, and Brook Street are improved 50-foot right-of-ways with sidewalk, curb, and gutter. Additional access will be provided west of Rainbow Drive with a 50-foot right-of-way improved with paving, curb, and gutter via Pert Avenue. The development history and zoning history. So the main part of the history of this parcel is that it used to be a proposed subdivision called Keno Ranch Subdivision. It was to be developed in 5 phases and to have single-family lots as well as multifamily lots and also 10 commercial lots. This was approved in February 2004. A 1-year extension of time was granted for this subdivision in 2006. The final plat for Phase A of this subdivision was completed in October 2005. Phase B was submitted on and received comments from us, but were not addressed with a resubmission. The Keno Ranch subdivision plat expired on May 2007. A portion of the area to the north and the west, the north and the east were rezoned in March 2004 for the development of that subdivision. The area in question today is formally the 3rd phase, Phase C of the Keno Ranch subdivision tract in 1983. Subdivision tract 1983. As I mentioned earlier, that subdivision expired. This is the preliminary plan for Keno Ranch tract 1983. You can see here are the proposed commercial lots, multifamily density here, and we had some R16 here. This was the first portion of Keno Ranch tract 1983, and this one is, maybe you can't see here, but in the vicinity map, we have Keno up here. See if it.
Rosa?
Yeah.
Since you're here right now, can you go back to that one, the frame before, please?
Mm-hmm.
So Keno is to the north, correct?
Right.
Rainbow is over here
Yes.
on the east. So in this expansion of this right now, is there going to be, is that entrance into Rainbow going to be included in that?
This one here will
Yes,
be.
that entrance from, no, well, that's from Keno. I know where that is, and that's existing already. But right there where Rainbow, is that going to be included in this proposal?
Yes,
Okay,
that
that's what I
will be.
wanted to clarify and make sure, because from that other map, it doesn't really show it very well. So, okay, thank you.
So this is just the northern part, and then I do have the proposed subdivision further in the presentation. Analysis, the current block numbering does not provide, maybe let me go ahead and reference that before I get into it. This is the proposed subdivision. There, as you can see, it's pretty similar to the previous one. We have here Pert Avenue, and it'll be accessed via Melody here. As you can see, the street here no longer extends out, and this no longer extends down. So it's just kind of like a more reserved area there. The current block numbering does not provide sufficient width to any proposed lot to allow for 2 tiers of lots. The block numbering will have to be corrected in the final plat. The project engineer will also have to submit a petition of exception from section 4.3 to allow 1-tier lots instead of 2-tiers lots, which is normally required. And this is referring to the lots along Sunshine. The lot dimensions generally comply with city standards in the requested zoning districts. The lot numbering is in sequential order and appears to comply with the subdivision ordinance requirements. However, changes in block numbering and boundaries may result in revised lot numbers and sequencing prior to the recordation of the final plat. 5 new interior streets are proposed with this subdivision. East and west, we have streets Dillon, Pert, Demi. North-south, we have streets named Brooks, Evans, Melody, and I put Brook on there twice. And then we have Dillon and Demi would be new street names that do not appear to duplicate elsewhere within the Kingman area. Pert and North Melody would be continuations of existing streets to the west and north respectively. North Evans Streets and North Brook Street do not connect to the same name streets. However, these streets are generally consistent with the natural alignment of the same name streets elsewhere in Kingman. A revised preliminary drainage study was submitted for the Keno subdivision. The site is primarily affected by 2 basins running southwest to northwest, identified as basin A2 and A3, subbasins within the previous Keno Ranch subdivision drainage report. The site consists of semi-consolidated dirt and low-lying vegetation without any trees. Soil, the NRCS soil report indicates that the soil group for the site falls within the Dutch flat soil category, which is hydrologic soil group B. Water and sewer mains will not need to be extended to serve the site. Water and sewer demand will require MUC approval. There appears to be water and sewer line paybacks on the North Rainbow Street water and sewer mains. Utility facilities including but not limited to gas, electric power, telephone and cable, television are to be located underground. Water and sewer demand is not known and will require MUC approval. Staff recommends approval of this preliminary plat with conditions as recommended by staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission. Is there any questions regarding this item?
Questions for Rosa? Okay, thank you. Any discussion, council? Okay, we need to open a public hearing on this matter then. I'd like to open a public hearing for consideration of resolution number 5495, Keno subdivision preliminary plat. Is there anybody from the public or here in chambers who would like to comment on this? Okay, seeing none, we will close our public hearing. Carl, are we doing it right? Okay. So, item number 4B, consideration of resolution number 5495, Kingman subdivision preliminary plat. Any other further comment from council? seems like the developer has done what our Planning and Zoning Commission has asked and what staff has asked. So, and of course, once again, staff recommends approval. Can we have a motion then approving resolution number 5495?
So moved.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Item number 4C, council direction for funding the Grace Neal Sewer Trunk Main Project. The Grace Neal Sewer Main Capital Improvement Project is a project for the construction of a sewer trunk main in the Grace Neal Parkway Road. This project was added to the wastewater capacity fee study in 2022 with a total cost of $3.7 million. After hiring an engineering firm to design the sewer main and develop construction cost estimates, the project's cost is estimated at $5.8 million. Our acting city engineer has identified a savings of approximately $700,000 if the extension along Grace Neal Parkway between North Roosevelt Street to Eastview Road is constructed at a later date. To move forward with the project, either as proposed in the sewer master plan or the alternative identified by staff, additional funding is needed. Staff has identified several options for council's consideration. Staff is seeking council direction. Acting Deputy Mayor. Yeah, I'm sorry. Deputy Manager. I need more drugs.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Vice Mayor and Council. So about a year and a half ago, in late 2022, the Grace Neal Sewer Trunk Main Project was added to the calculation of our wastewater capacity fees. At that time, the estimated construction costs were $3.7 million. So fast forward a year and a half, and design has been completed, and now the cost estimates have come in at $5.8 million. Now, while we've hired our contractor to do some value engineering on the project, we certainly do not expect it to come back saving $2.1 million. So our acting city engineer looked at the project and knew that it was, that's a pretty big ask of $2.1 million to identify funding for that. So he was able to look at the project scope and potentially, certainly offer an option to reduce the scope. Annie, can you go to, just scroll down for the maps. So you have two maps in your attachment, which is the full scope of the project. So the project, can you go to the other map, Annie, for me? So the project right now is, the line will extend from Mojave Wash Channel on the east side, going west to just west of Bank. And then Annie, can you go to the other, there you go. And then from Roosevelt, going west to Eastview. So our Mr. Garman has said that this particular extension or this segment would primarily serve the state land that is to the west of Stockton Hill Road, meaning that it is there to provide the capacity for that particular parcel, not necessarily for the Angle Homes land. The other segment would provide the capacity for that. So by eliminating this segment for now, it would save about $700,000 in construction costs. Now, at some point, that land may be developed. At this point, it is not being looked at to be developed. And if you've dealt with the State Department, right, it's difficult to get the land anyhow. So that is an option. So tonight's item is really twofold. One is, do we want to build the entire project or the reduced scope? And then how do we want to fund the difference? And so there's a couple of different options for funding. We can say that we want to include those increased cost estimates into our capacity fees and have growth or development, new development, pay for growth. Or we can ask our existing wastewater users to pay for the project. And that would impact a couple of things. First of all, users would be paying for growth. And it would reduce our cash reserves that we're currently keeping on for our downtown sewer outfall line in year 5 of our CIP, meaning that we would need to borrow more money at that time than what we're already anticipating. So those are a couple of the different options. If we were to include it in the capacity fees and we did the full scope of the project, it would increase capacity fees by about $635. If we did the reduced scope, it would increase capacity fees by about $475, I believe. So that's what's being brought before you this evening for consideration and direction, really, to us.
So council, looking at our paperwork that we have in our packet, basically there's items 1 through 4, the different plans that Tina is recommending, and she has it now up on the screen there. Any comments or questions for Tina about this?
Yes, I do.
Okay, Sean?
On the family residential connection fees, is that an annual fee or a one-time cost?
It's a one-time connection fee, and I might, let me just re-clarify, and thank you so much, Councilman Savage. Those increased capacity fee costs are only for single-family residential. It would increase as the meter size increased. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, council. What are your thoughts? Councilor Saley?
Yep, I think it's more fair for growth to pay for growth. I think that if we are able to put off building this certain segment, because you're right, state land, it's difficult to purchase that land and develop it. And I don't think we're there yet because there's so much open land in that area right now. Although when the time does come, it will cost a lot more than $700,000. So we're putting that off we're kicking that can, which I hate to do. But I think in this case, trying to keep this increase reasonable, I would prefer to have growth pay for growth, and that we also reduce the project by eliminating that section of the project. That's my opinion.
So you support number 4 then?
Yeah,
Okay.
number 4. Again, number 4. It's a lucky number tonight.
It seems to be. I'm in agreement with you. And as Tina pointed out, with the state, trying to get land away from the state is very difficult. So at this point in time, that could be 20, 30, 40 years from now. So I would support proposal number 4. Vice Mayor, you want to weigh in?
You put me on the spot.
I know.
Well, the whole reason that we did the study and had put this on the capital improvements plan was so that we could continue to grow out in that area. So this is going to allow us to grow in another direction. So, I mean, I've always been in favor of the project itself, and I'm happy that we have an option for savings, which we never get presented with saving money. So I would support number 4 as well, so that we can continue growing out that way as well.
Okay, thank you. Any more discussion? Okay, can we have a motion then? I think it seems like the flavor would be proposal number 4 on this item. In other words, approval of item 4B, council funding for the Grace Neal Sewer Trunk Main Project, proposal number 4.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll
We have a
second.
second. We have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Item number 5, department reports. 5A, legislative update from our lobbyist, Tom Dorn. And of course, Tina, we'll let you introduce.
Absolutely. Hi, Tom. We've got Tom Dorn with the Dorn Policy Group here tonight to provide you with our monthly legislative update. Tom.
Thank you, Tina. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. It's been a long day. Wish I could be up there, but I'm stuck here in Phoenix. Just to give you a brief update on where things are at the Capitol. What's happening is, previously the legislature took a break, at least the House did, to go to Israel. Members are back, obviously, and they've been working very hard to meet some of the deadlines. This past week was the last week for committees to be to hear bills. And so they've now moved on to where they are basically going to caucus as the Democrats and the Republicans, and then going to work on the floor on all the bills and trying to get committee work done, to get everything done on the floor action. What we have heard already, though, that the Senate and probably the House too will start taking a week break. So we understand from tomorrow, April 3rd, after they adjourn, are not going to come back until the following Wednesday, the 10th. I hate to see this, personally, I hate to see this pattern repeating itself. It used to be where the legislature would literally lock the doors and make sure they didn't leave to go back to their real life until the work was done. Unfortunately, it seems like too many people, this is their real life. And instead of just being a part-time legislature, these things seem to drag out all of a sudden. A little commentary there. Anyway, so what we're dealing with still is the budget negotiation. The revenue numbers haven't changed. We do expect April to produce different revenue numbers. The Democrats are surely everybody's hoping that the revenue picture increases. But as of right now, we still have the potential $2.8 billion shortfall over the next 2 years. As I already told you, we have an $835 million shortfall this year and an $875 million shortfall the following year. And then the one-time spending gap, that also is there. So we're looking at $2.8 billion over 2 years. So that's why everyone's hoping that the revenue numbers improve before they get going on the budget. For Kingman, what does that mean? We're very concerned, the presentation earlier about Kingman Crossing. We're still hopeful about Rancho Santa Fe, the $9.9 million that we have in the ask for that Representative Gillette is working hard to keep in the mix. We also have the other appropriations that we've asked for with regard to Eastern Street, and then the other one on Airway Avenue. But the priority obviously is the Rancho Santa Fe interchange. So, and I was talking to Leo Biasucci about it yesterday, and he did say that it really is going to come down to the revenue numbers. We need revenue numbers to increase in order to get some funding on that. But he did want to reassure everybody that things that were funded previously, they're not going to be clawing back other items in other areas. It's just that these are the ones that need to be funded, and they're all in House Bill 2412. With regard to the session timeline, I did want to let you know that based on what they're doing, this could, if the revenue numbers don't change in April, they'll sit around and unfortunately they may wait for May, or they'll pass something and get hopefully the governor will sign it if there's nothing significant that and they may try to get out. The primary election being moved up definitely has an impact on the legislators wanting to get out sooner. So maybe they'll compromise on some things in order, because the primary, as you know, has been moved up into July. With regard to the major legislation, what we care about, for the city of Kingman, obviously is the water issue. That's the main priority that we're working on. With regard to Senate Bill 1221, which you sent a letter to Sina Kerr, which she happened to reply to, and hopefully everybody on the council got a copy of that. She did reply, but we did state all of the points that are aligned with what Mojave County has also been saying, and then City of Kingman, so as well as La Paz and Coconino and Yavapai. But we had our unique statements that we had in there, but we're trying to continue to work as a team. And that also today was a meeting in the governor's office with the county, and I know Supervisor Lingenfelter was there, Sam Elters was there, and I know Mr. Walsh was on there. I was supposed to be on, but I could not get in from the meeting I was at, trying to get on the Zoom. But I followed up with staff, and it was a meeting with the governor's office. It was the opportunity to reiterate all of our points, and the governor's staff appreciates and understands the issues for rural Arizona, especially for the language in 1221 that is not meeting it's not to our satisfaction. We want more conservation, protection of the Wallapai Valley, and concerns with regard to the way the bill is structured and where agriculture may have too much of an impact on the outcomes. And I think there's a real important message that we continue. And when I talk to legislators and other people on our team talk to legislators, we really try to point out that, rural Arizona is not all agriculture. There's important for agriculture, but the manufacturing and other businesses and just the city's growth in itself in rural Arizona. So you can't put us all in a box that we're ag oriented completely. And that issue is resonating with legislators that aren't really dialed in. They may be from Central Phoenix and not, and they don't know where they listen to the home builders or they listen to others. Like, me representing the city of Kingman, but they're in Phoenix. We try to make sure that we get that all across. With regard to some of the other issues, there have been some planning and zoning issues that we've all been working on, supporting other cities and counties and towns all working together on some of those. Some have been vetoed. Some of the issues that, Mr. Biasucci's bill on home design restrictions and Mr. Borelli's, those were substituted for each other and they were vetoed. There's some the mobile home relocation costs that's something that we've been following for the city. The adaptive reuse of commercial buildings, there's been we had concerns earlier because that would have to do with permitting of reuse of, say, a Walgreens, turning it into an apartment. And this isn't working for all cities. So they finally amended it to make sure it's limited in its use and has to be a certain percentage for housing if you're doing changes. There's been, as I've indicated previously, there's been a real planning and zoning has been one of the issues that the legislature's been going after. And a lot of that has to do with, Speaker Toma being a realtor and Senate President Warren Peterson being a developer. And he continues to give these examples of some cities taking 16 years to approve a document to build it. There's some rhetoric that just doesn't align well, but the League of Cities and Towns, County Supervisors Association, neighborhood groups, everyone's been working together, the planners, to make sure that we kind of push back responsibly. And we've seen effectiveness in that. The governor has had the cities back on this. And so that's been good. She already vetoed the one bill with regard to housing. And I'll just kind of wrap up and see if there are any questions. One thing I did want to let you know, later today here at 4:00, and I was trying to get any feedback from the governor's staff if I could, but there is a meeting with the Senate and House leaders with regard to water. It was mainly the governor's staff and then a bipartisan group, Senator Kerr, Representative Griffin, the two lead Republicans on the water issues, as well as Senator Sundaration and Representative Mathis, both from the Tucson area. They're the lead Democrats in the negotiations. So politics makes strange bedfellows, and we're definitely seeing that on the waterfront in these negotiations. The question is, we oppose Senate Bill 1221. Is that going to be sent up to the governor, and is the governor going to veto it? Or will the Republicans hold back on it and say, if you don't sign, we'll give you this in the budget if you agree to sign 1221. I don't see the governor doing that. I think that 1221 is a non-starter with the governor. And because she has more authority moving in with the EMAs and may start with the Gila Bend AMA. But we'll see how that unfolds. Mayor and Council, I will stop there and be happy to answer any questions.
Tom, appreciate that update. Council, do we have any questions for Mr. Dorn? Yes, Councilor Saley.
Thank you for the update. I really appreciate these. I wanted to ask you about the HCR 2023. I did see that that is going to go on the ballot, and I wondered if you could shed some light, just to let everybody know, that's the property tax refund nuisance enforcement item. Can you shed some light on that? Because the language seems very vague. Kingman does not charge a property tax, but it almost sounds like you can get a refund of all your property taxes, county and state, if the city does not enforce their laws. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Carl's saying no.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Councilwoman Staley, this is a sledgehammer to a gnat. It's going to be on the ballot, and it's being driven. It made it, so it will be on your ballot.
Yeah.
And remember, whoever's in the majority at the legislature, and they always want to drive people to the polls. And so what do they think what can we put on? So in this situation, we have the Republicans in charge by one vote in each chamber. What can we put on the ballot that will drive people to the polls? And especially if there's other ballot measures that they want to counter, they don't want too many people showing up on that issue and not have enough to show up on issues that would drive their base. So, homeless people, all of a sudden, this comes out of the idea of, the zone in downtown Phoenix where the courts said, get out, city of Phoenix, you need to disperse this. And so the Republicans thought this is a great idea. How about if we, when if a city is not enforcing its laws with regard to a nuisance, in this case being homeless people being identified as a nuisance, the city, you can file a claim against the city for a refund of your property taxes. And so, what else is a nuisance? Fireworks, too many fireworks on the wrong days. I don't know, the city allowed something to happen that became a nuisance. This is a lawyer's dream. And so I don't, to answer your question, Councilwoman, you're right. I mean, it is vague. And so it can be very problematic. And even for a city that doesn't have a property tax, could some lawyer, with all due respect to Carl, could some lawyer figure out how to, if you don't have a property tax, at least then you owe us this tax, or you owe us a refund on that.
Yeah.
So it's going to be in this haste to put more things on the ballot to drive your base. They're getting pretty sloppy and putting some things on that may have long-term impacts that may be harmful to cities and counties and the state itself.
Yeah, and that seems like an easy win. I mean, the voters are going to read that and say, "Oh, I will get my property tax back." Sure. So, but then it's so vague. I don't know how it will be applied or how it will affect Kingman. I see Carl wants to jump in here.
I can jump in real quick because there's a section where it talks about the property owner will be able to apply for taxes within the municipality if there's any of those property taxes collected. And it says if it's a person unincorporated, then it would apply for refunds from the county. So I don't think there's going to be, again, it's not well drafted,
Right.
but I would say the likelihood of a citizen of the city of Kingman feeling that whatever nuisance charge they believe wasn't enforced, it should not affect the county because that's what the statute says. Again, this is not drafted well. I would suspect there'll be a lot of legal challenges if it is passed.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But there's a lot of language in here talking about how we'll do that, but it also then shows that there's obviously still prosecutorial discretion in handling these kind of cases. So it'll be litigated, definitely.
Yeah, I think it could open up the cities to some problems. And yeah, that's why I was hoping that maybe there were more answers there that I couldn't find, but it sounds like there are not.
Like I say, I think our exposure is minimal for
Okay.
this, just because it does specifically list property taxes, and we don't have that. But again, it's on the ballot. We'll see what happens, and you kind of you see how it plays out when it, if and when it happens, so.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, Counselor? Okay, Vice
Mayor,
Mayor.
Mayor and Council.
Oh, yes, Tom.
I did want to mention, and maybe Carl can give some insights on this too, or look into it. You know, Proposition 207 that was passed several years ago, that gives people cause if government devalues your property if government takes an action that devalues your property, you can seek compensation. You have a cause against the government for that. And so how would that align with it? You know, you got the nuisance issue that if it passed, and then you'd have that Proposition 207. So both are government, one is government taking an action that devalues your property, and the other is government not taking an action, therefore you get a refund. They're just two different issues that may be conflicting too. So I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to add that.
Thanks for that clarification. Vice Mayor.
I do have a question.
Oh, hold on, Sean.
Having not read that actual bill itself, is there a back date on that, on how far they can go back?
It's, if I recall, I'll jump in. If I recall, it's talking about they can file a claim once per tax assessment cycle.
So that means they can't go back to when we stopped our property tax? It's
No,
current?
no,
Okay.
just whatever.
Okay,
Yeah, that was
Okay.
in the 80s, I believe, so, yeah.
right. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Sean. Vice Mayor.
Hi, good evening, Tom. Thank you for the report. I just have a couple of things. So along the lines of that 2023 bill, my thought goes to if they can ask for a refund to the county, then does the county have recourse against the city because we are the enforcer of the codes and things like that? So that's where my mind immediately went to is, you know, that the county asking for recourse. So I don't know if that has been talked about or is that in the bill anywhere?
I'll go back, that was kind of referencing the subsection I was talking about. So if it's a citizen within the city of Kingman making a complaint that we're not enforcing it, they can only apply to the city for a property tax reimbursement.
So
We
it's
don't have that.
not to the payor of who they pay their property taxes to that they would ask for the reimbursement.
It explicitly says citizens. If it's a
Okay.
citizen in
Okay.
an incorporated area, it's the city. If it's in the unincorporated area, it's the county. Now, having said that, that doesn't mean it's not going to get litigated.
Right, yeah, I see issues. So my second question is the ongoing one-time spending gap. Are they still working on that? Please tell me yes, that they're still trying to whittle that figure down.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, I believe so because they're working on the budget. So
Okay.
I know that's just the craziest term, ongoing one time, but yes, I'm sure everyone's hopeful. Like I said at the beginning, everyone's hopeful revenues come in higher and they can deal with some of these things. Not only balance the budget and keep the budget structurally balanced, but then move on to other things like the, Rancho Santa Fe and other projects. But yes, they are working on it.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that process was still ongoing and it wasn't one time, no pun intended. So, I think that's it. Well, no, that isn't it. Do you see a trend with the bills not going up to the governor's desk for her veto and getting more put onto the ballot? Do you see that trending?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council members, yes, one of them is I don't have the number up, so many numbers in my head, but 2030, the border crossers, they want to possibly put on the ballot, and I know there's an Hispanic chamber and the business community itself, you're hearing around here. We do not need that put on the ballot. it makes sense if you don't, it says if a city, if you do not cross at a port of entry, you can be arrested by the county sheriff, any law enforcement officer in the state. And I hear that, others hear that, but the perception of it, it's like fair game out on the border. We'll have people arresting everybody that did not come through the port of entry. It's such common sense, but there's concern from the governor and other people that it creates kind of a son of 1070 perception of the state. So that's an interesting discussion because the common sense is there because they are crossing illegally. But that is one of the leading ones that people are trying to put on the ballot because it would drive voters that care, number one, about, border immigration is one of the top issues. So that might drive people to vote yes, possibly more Republicans. So that's why the leadership is considering that. Yes, there are more that they're considering. In addition, that's kind of the leading one. People are concerned because you all know this, called ballot fatigue. When you get too far down, people will go, but when you get to all those judges, you have to mark. And then by the time you even get to the ballot measures, you're just tired and angry and you go, no, 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 no on everything. And in that, especially in Maricopa County, where they're very concerned about the transportation tax continuation, you have the Phoenix business community. And in rural Arizona needs and wants Maricopa County to pass this tax for themselves so they don't start putting their hands into our HERF money in rural Arizona. So yes, there's the push by the Republican leadership to try to put more on the ballot to drive, but they're also, it's a dangerous gamble because you could lose a lot of other things that people care about.
Okay, thank you.
Tom, once again, we appreciate all you do for City of Kingman and representing us, and have a good evening.
Honored to do so. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye. Item number 5B, pavement maintenance and improvement updates. Starting off with our Deputy City Manager, but I think she's going to turn
I'm going to turn the time over to Jack Planty.
Okay.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, in our line of monthly updates for pavement preservation, bringing you some back. So a couple of these maps you've seen, but I just want to keep them in there so you can see where we're at. This is the 23-24 fiscal year plan preservation. And so one thing that doesn't show up in here, but will show up in the work completed, is that residential District 3 that the crack seal is completed in currently. The pink to the top right of the city limits there above I-40, that's residential 2. So I just want to point out that's in progress right now. That's not completed. When you look at the next map, it doesn't show it because we're not done with it. We're partway through it. So big piece I want to update right now is the numbers that we have for you. So a beginning budget was 10.8 million. Currently we've expended 9.5 of that, 9.6 to date. And we have additional work coming up. Residential District 2 crack seal is underway. That's our city crew out there doing that work currently. Did speak with the contractor, and so the next page I'll go to kind of show you what roads it are. Many of our roads we had slated for 2 treatments. One was the rubberized chip seal, and then we were coming back with a type 2 microsurface to smooth that surface out and give us a nice road. And so that is scheduled right now for June 10th through the 28th. Obviously pending weather or other issues, but that's our completion date is before the 30th. So our crack seal just continues to go up. Right now we're at 799,000 pounds of crack seal that has been applied to date. Our crew continues to work on that. They do between 5,000 and 6,000 pounds a day with a single crew. So that number will keep going up. I do want to point out that number was jumping up pretty quickly. Both the work completed to date and the crack seal, you'll see the crack seal continue to creep up again with that 5,000 to 6,000 pounds a day. But the spending, you're going to see kind of stagnate. And not because we're not doing work, just everything has been encumbered. We have that money tied up. And so until June comes along, that's when we'll see a couple more pay applications coming in as that work's completed. Again, over 2 million square feet of area will be treated in fiscal year '24 between arterials and collectors. And so this is the map that was showing what we've completed to date. Do want to point out the dark orange roads in there. Those are the ones that are coming back for the type 2 micro coming in June. And then you'll see a couple of the green roads that are shown. I think Bank Street alone was just a crack seal, but Stockton Hill and Andy Devine, those sections are slated for a fog seal. And so those are just our preventative maintenance treatments. So those are again scheduled for that June 10th through 28th time period. Like I mentioned, the pink area of residential district 2 is not shown on here because it's underway. A portion of that is complete. It's just doing road by road individually is very time consuming, so don't show that. Showing the district 3 again that was done, and the district 2 that's underway. And those are in your packet. And with that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Jack. Any questions for Jack? Councilor Saley?
Thanks, Jack. A couple of things. So the District 2 is the pink, and that is, you're doing crack sealing, which means you're getting ready to chip seal it.
That's correct.
Do you have a date for that?
I do not. We're starting to put some packages together, and so I would like to do at least one of the districts coming into the fall, and then do the remainder coming into the spring. Our goal is to do 2, 3, and 4 next year, trying to average. We'd pitched doing one district per year,
Yeah.
but some of the work we've done on arterials has got us a little bit ahead. And so we've shifted gears and we're trying to complete all of the residentials over the next 3 fiscal years.
Okay, so you're going to do it at 2 separate times, but the first is in the fall.
Correct. Yep, we'll do one in the fall, and then we'll do a portion in the fall and a portion in the spring. Could be 1 or 2 districts in the fall. Most likely we'll do 1 in the fall and 2 in the spring, and that way we give our asphalt crew more time to prep and get everything ready to go once they're completed with crack sealing on District 2.
Okay. And then the question that I keep getting from people is they see the crew out crack sealing, but they're not fixing potholes on those residential streets when they're crack sealing, like the big potholes. And so everybody's asking, what about the potholes that they're just going by? They're going to come back and patch those before they chip seal?
Nah, we're just going to leave them. Yes, we're going to come back. You're talking about a 4-person crew. It takes everybody on the crew just to run crack seal. What they are doing is keeping a punch list as they're working through. And the general maintenance side, sometimes they're coming back and patching those. They're tied up with water patching as well. So they do have a punch list where as the crack seal crew completes their work, we're coming through and we'll do the prep work prior to the chip seal. So that's part of the reason I was saying we'll probably do 1 in the spring, because you're talking almost 100 miles of road that we've got to get prepped for chip seal. So District 2, I think that was 32, 33 miles. And so we'll get crack sealed, we'll get that prepped, crack seal that in the spring, or I'm sorry, in the fall, and that'll give us the winter time to finish out District 4 crack seal and prepping 3 and 4 for chip seal.
Okay, it makes sense. I'm sure that it's a different application to crack seal than to fill a pothole. So they're probably set up for crack sealing and they're just going through, and then you said they're making a list of all the potholes. They know they have got to go back and fix those before the chips go down.
They are.
Okay.
They're not Santa Claus, but they will check them twice.
Good. I'm sure people will be happy to hear that. Then my other question is just, I want to clarify about the, for everyone that's paying attention, the micro surfacing fog seal on the dark orange and the bright green. So for example, Western right now is kind of rough because it's been chip sealed, and you're going to go back and put something over the top of it that smooths that out.
We will. So we did a high volume chip over that, and it helps seal some of the cracks and provide, it's not necessarily structure, but help hold that raveled asphalt together. And then we come back with the Type 2 Micro. I don't know if any of you recall when we did Stockton Hill north of Gordon. They came in, we did some mastic to fill in the big cracks, and then did a slurry over that. It's going to be real similar. So it'll have a surface when we're done that'll be comparable to asphalt.
It looks like a new road, fills everything in, and it's dark black, and it
Yep.
looks nice. And that's like Western, it looks like Andy Devine, Southern.
Andy Devine will be a fog seal because we've paved that over the last 3-4 years.
Okay.
But yeah, Southern Louise, Western,
Harrison.
Gordon's in there, you can't see it. Yeah, Harrison's not in that. That's actually coming for the next fiscal year.
Okay.
But there are some small segments where we did some pulverize and pave where they were too far gone. So like Keno has a couple sections between the new asphalt we placed that will come in and put the Type 2 Micro.
Okay. So I mean, that will be a big improvement then on some of those major roads.
It will, with the, especially with a high volume chip, it's a bigger aggregate. And so you see a rougher surface, you have more road noise and stuff. And that's where we come back with that micro and seal that top over.
And when is that going to happen? Oh, June. Never
June
mind.
10th.
June 10th and 28th. Okay, so those are great things to look forward to. Any chance that you found some sweepers to pick up all these rocks that are?
We did actually. I didn't put it in here, but the contractor sent some up to take care of the orange roads. We had a company come up and work for us, picking up the fines out of the residential district. And so we actually did, over the last week and a half, 2 weeks, almost 900 lane miles of sweeping.
Great. Okay, thank you. Those are all of my questions.
Thank you, Counselor.
Thanks, Jack.
Any other questions for Jack?
Yeah.
Counselor Ward?
Jack, where we at on utility cut repairs?
I don't know what the current backlog is off the top of my head. I didn't bring that for Pave Pres. We patch we have a crew that does that almost continuously. We are waiting on a part for the truck right now. We're working on some proposals. Deputy Director Moline had helped us find some money to do some more patching because that line item for water had been expended. And so we've got roughly another $200,000 worth of proposals that we're working on right now.
Okay. I
Okay.
get a lot of calls and complaints.
Oh, well, I'm sure we've all had calls and complaints even about the chip sealing.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, the people, especially those who have moved here from other states, are saying, what are you guys doing? What is that? You know?
Yeah, the list of water patches, the last number, and like I say, I didn't check those numbers today, but the last backlog number of patches that we had was over 100. And we've done, I think the last report I give to you, we've done almost 500 since July.
Yeah, the last count I had on them was 150, and I was just wondering.
Yeah, that would have been the backlog amount.
Jack, one other question that has come up. The chips that once they pick up all the chips, those get reused, recycled again?
Yeah, so we have, after this last one, we took them, we piled them up. You guys had approved an item where we rented a screened all those back off. We'll rerun the gradations and make sure they still meet specification for those, and then they'll get reused.
That's what I thought, but thanks again. Any other questions for Jack? Okay, thank you, Jack.
Great, thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Item number 6, announcements by mayor, council members, and city manager. Deputy Manager Tina Moline.
I have nothing this evening, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, Councilor Savage, are you there, Sean?
I'm here. Yes, I'd like to announce that this Saturday, the 6th at noon, the Kingman Moose Lodge will be hosting a first responders lunch to thank them for their service. And they will also be presenting the little Tommy Moose dolls that they hand out to children when they're in a emergency situation and helps them with their dress. So it's open to the public. Please come down and support our first responders.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
Councilor Ward.
The only thing I have is I toured the Nomadic Center in Havasu with the Economic Development Group. Is that quite interesting? I don't know that we would ever do anything like that, but it's a public-private thing, and they rent out space, and it's relatively cheap, and it's for startups and entrepreneurs, and they have started a couple businesses out of there. And then they're currently, it's rented full, and
Wow.
they're looking at expanding it. But it was quite interesting. I enjoyed it.
Well, and once again, it's another option that cities have.
Yeah.
And Havasu, of course, is taking
And,
advantage of it.
And the biggest shock was when we pulled up to it, it's a large metal building right in the center of Lake Havasu area. And it actually, it looks good, but when you first pull up, you know, you see all those beautiful old buildings, and they're right in the center of town. There's this huge center, and it was interesting. I enjoyed it.
Okay, thank you for that report. Counselor Saley.
A couple things. First, I wanted to mention that on April 13th, it's the Kingman Annual Day of Caring, but my commission, the Clean City Commission, is doing their cleanup on their adopted part of Andy Devine. And so if anybody wants to join the Clean City Commission on that day, it starts at 8, meet at Public Works, and they go from Public Works to Flying J is their cleanup area. So that's April 13th at 8 a.m. And then also that weekend, the 13th and 14th, is the Mojave County Rodeo. So lots going on that weekend. You can do a cleanup and then go to the rodeo.
Great, thank you. Counselor Eric. Okay, Vice Mayor?
I do have a couple of things. Also on the 13th, the Realtor Association is doing a street food truck event at Lewis Kingman Park. And so they'll be benefiting, all the admission goes to charities in our area, Cornerstone Mission, St. Vincent de Paul, the Yucca Pantry. There's quite a few organizations that they're going to be giving to. So on the 13th, you can also do that in the afternoon. It's from 11 to 6. I also wanted to publicly thank staffer Coral Evans from Senator Kelly's office. She got us a meeting with the FAA to help us with our land release that is going on at the airport. It was a very productive meeting. We went down with some of the staff, so I wanted to thank them for their time. I think that we are on the right track to expedite that land release as much as we possibly can when you're working with the FAA. So I wanted to thank her for arranging that meeting and for those that attended.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I really don't have anything, but I did want to thank, as many of you know, I had knee replacement surgery a week ago, and I just wanted to thank all those who, their thoughts and prayers for a speedy recovery. And it does mean a lot, and I appreciate it. And then along those lines, once again, that's another manifestation of service as we look for ways to serve our fellow men, and especially those who live in our Kingman area. And as was mentioned by Councilor Saley and Vice Mayor, these various days that we can go and serve and accomplish a number of different things for our community. I just want to thank that continued service. Item number 7, council requests for future reports and updates. Does anybody have anything? Councilor Eric.
I'd like to request a report.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Counselor. Anybody else? Okay, thanks again for everybody being here in chambers, or if you watch via our YouTube channel, we appreciate your participation, and we are adjourned.